Margaret Brooks, a 72-year-old widow from a small town in Vermont, has always prided herself on her independence. But over time, her health began to fail, and she decided to hire a caregiver. And Amanda, a 32-year-old woman with a medical background and pleasant appearance, seemed like the perfect candidate. She was friendly, caring, and seemed genuinely interested in Margaret's well-being. "Amanda, you're a real find," said Margaret after the first week of working together. Amanda helped Margaret with cooking, cleaning, and even read her favorite books in the evenings. Margaret felt that she had found not just a caregiver, but a friend. But over time, Margaret began to notice strange things. Amanda spent more time with her son John than with her. John, a 38-year-old bachelor who was rarely home, was now coming home much more often. "Mom, Amanda is great." You've really found someone special," he said one day. These words caused Margaret to feel a little anxious. One day, as Margaret walked by the kitchen, she heard Amanda and John laughing together. Her heart sank. When she couldn't understand why it made her so uncomfortable. "Maybe I'm just getting old and seeing things too sharply," she thought. But something in Amanda's behavior began to seem suspicious. John had always been Margaret's pride. He worked as an engineer for a large company and often called his mother to ask how she was doing. But after Amanda moved into her home, their relationship began to change. One morning, while Margaret was having breakfast in the kitchen, John arrived unexpectedly. He greeted his mother, but immediately went to the living room where Amanda was. Margaret heard them talking and laughing, and it made her feel like she was an outsider in her own home. "John, you came here to spend time with me, not her," Margaret said at dinner that night. John smiled. "Mom, I'm just trying to be friendly. Amanda is a wonderful person. She takes such good care of you." These words were like a knife to Margaret's heart. She had always been sure that John was on her side, but now it seemed that he was getting closer to Amanda than to her. The situation escalated when Amanda began to take on more responsibility than her job required. She decided what Margaret would eat, what medications she would take, and even which bills to pay. One day, when Margaret asked why her favorite magazines were no longer arriving, Amanda replied, "I thought they weren't that important. I canceled my subscription to save money." This angered Margaret. "It's not your decision. This is my house and my money." Amanda calmly replied, "I just want to help. If you don't like it, I can reconsider." John always took Amanda's side. "Mom, you're not being fair to her. She's doing everything she can to make you feel better," he would say. These words only deepened Margaret's sense of loneliness. She began to suspect that Amanda had ulterior motives, but she could not find any evidence. One day, when Amanda went out to the store, Margaret decided to check her room. She found several notes with financial details that struck her as suspicious. But what shocked her the most was that among the papers was a photo of John and Amanda together, taken just recently. When Amanda returned, Margaret decided to speak to her directly. "Amanda, what are you doing with my son?" Amanda looked at her with a slight smile. "Mrs. Brooks, I'm not doing anything wrong. John and I just get along well. That's all." Margaret didn't believe her, but she didn't know how to prove her point. The next time John came over, Margaret tried to talk to him. "John, I think Amanda is using you," she said. John laughed. "Mom, that's ridiculous. She is a wonderful person. You're just jealous that I'm spending time with her." These words made Margaret angry. "Jealous? I am your mother, John. I can see that she is manipulating you, but you don't notice." John got up and left, leaving Margaret alone in the kitchen. For several weeks after the last fight, Margaret and John hardly spoke to each other. She felt like she was losing her son, but didn't know how to get him back. Amanda, meanwhile, behaved as usual. She cooked, cleaned, and seemed extremely attentive. One day, John came home again. He looked nervous but happy. "Mom, I have important news," he said, sitting down across from her at the kitchen table. Margaret felt anxious. "What is it?" John smiled. "I've decided to get married, and I think you can already guess who." Margaret froze. "Hey, is this a joke, John?" "No, Mom. Amanda and I are in love. I asked her to marry me, and she said yes." John's words were like a lightning bolt to Margaret. She felt her hands tremble and her heart pound. "John, are you serious?" She's your mother's nurse. It's not right." John looked annoyed. "Mom, I'm a grown man and I can decide for myself what's right for me. Amanda is wonderful and she takes better care of you than I ever could." "Huh?" Margaret snapped. "She's manipulating you. She's not here to help me. She's here to get what she wants." Amanda, who had just entered the room, heard these words. "Mrs. Brooks, I respect you, but I will not allow you to say such things about me," she said calmly. Margaret felt herself losing control of the situation. The following week, John and Amanda announced their impending wedding. They decided to hold the ceremony in a small church near Margaret's home. She was invited, but she wasn't going to go. "I can't bless this marriage, John. It's a betrayal of everything I believe in," she told her son. John was disappointed. "Mom, you have always considered yourself a person who supports love and family. Why can't you be happy for us?" "Because this is not love, John. It's profit." The wedding took place without Margaret. She sat at home, looking at old photos of John when he was little. She remembered how she had promised herself she would always be there for him, but now she felt like she was losing him forever. After the wedding, things got worse, and Amanda moved into Margaret's house, and now she felt like a guest in her own home. Amanda began to make changes in the home. She decided which furniture to keep, which to replace, and even started to insist that Margaret move to a smaller room. "It will be better for you, Mrs. Brooks. You will be able to move around more easily," Amanda said with a smile that seemed fake to Margaret. Margaret couldn't take it any more. "This is my home, Amanda. You are only here because I let you. Don't forget that." Amanda just shrugged her shoulders. "John and I want you to be comfortable. But this is our home now." These words were the last straw for Margaret. She realized that Amanda had not only taken her son away, but was gradually depriving her of her right to have a voice in her own life. After John and Amanda's wedding, Margaret felt her life begin to fall apart. Amanda became the mistress of the house, and Margaret became a guest who was ignored when she tried to express her opinion. One morning, while sitting in the kitchen with a cup of coffee, Margaret noticed that the bills that used to come in the mail were no longer arriving. "Where are all my papers?" she asked Amanda. Amanda answered without looking up from her laptop. "I've transferred all the bills to automatic payment. You don't have to worry about that anymore." Margaret felt alarmed. "But it's my money, Amanda." I want to see where my money is going," Amanda said calmly. "I'm just trying to make your life easier. John and I have decided this is for the best." This conversation kept Margaret on her toes. She decided to check her bank account. When she got the bank, the manager was surprised to hear her ask, "Mrs., do you really want to withdraw this money? You just recently opened your account for Amanda and John." Margaret froze. "What did you say?" The manager explained that Amanda and John had recently been added as new authorized signatories to the account. Margaret felt like the ground had left her feet. When she returned home, her indignation exploded. "Amanda, John, did you add yourself to my account without my permission?" "Amanda, as always, remained calm. Mrs. Brooks, we just wanted to make sure that all your financial matters are in order. It's for your own good. For my own good. It's my account, my money. You have no right. John interjected. Mom, stop it. Amanda is right. We are only trying to help you. You have to trust us. But Margaret could no longer trust. In the days that followed, the situation worsened. Margaret learned that her house had been mortgaged to secure a loan she knew nothing about. This is impossible, she said to the lawyer she had contacted. Mrs. Brooks, your signature is on the documents, he replied. Margaret looked at the papers carefully and realized that her signature had been forged. She decided to confront Amanda and John. I know what you've done. You're using me to get access to my money and my house. Amanda smiled, but her voice turned cold. Mrs. Brooks, if you continue to behave like this could end badly for you. Remember that we are only trying to make your life more comfortable. These words made Margaret feel trapped. She decided to fight back. Margaret contacted another lawyer and began to gather evidence that Amanda was manipulating her and forging documents. I'm not going to let them take away everything I've built my whole life, she told herself. Margaret was scared but determined. She could no longer sit back and let Amanda and John manipulate her. She decided it was time to find out the truth and take back control of her life. Margaret began by carefully reviewing all the documents left in the house. She remembered that Amanda often worked on her laptop and decided to check it out. One day, when Amanda went to the store, Margaret entered her room. Her laptop was on the table, open and without a password. She quickly looked through Amanda's folders and emails. What she found made her heart sink. There were emails in the email that proved Amanda had planned to use Margaret's money. One of the emails was addressed to a lawyer. Once the house is re-registered, we will be able to access the assets more quickly. John is on my side. No problems are expected. These words infuriated Margaret. She took screenshots and sent them to her phone. That night she gathered her courage and decided to talk to John. John, I need to talk to you. It's important, she said when he came into the living room. John looked tired. Mom, if it's about Amanda again, I don't want to talk about it. You have to listen to me. I found evidence that she is manipulating you. She wants to take my money and my house. John sighed. Mom, you're starting to sound paranoid. Amanda would never do that. Margaret showed him the screenshots. Explain it to me then, John. How can you defend someone who does this to us? John looked stunned. He took the phone and looked at the pictures for a long time. This can't be true. Amanda loves me. She couldn't do this, he mumbled, but he sounded unsure. You have to realize that, John, she's using you to get to me, Margaret said, her voice trembling with emotion. The next morning, John tried to talk to Amanda. Amanda, I want you to explain these emails, he said, showing her the screenshots. Amanda didn't flinch. Her expression changed from friendly to cold. John, do you really believe this old woman? She just wants to destroy our relationship. She's always been against me, she replied. That's not an answer.